So Leo, founder and CEO of Tended, great to have you on the Fearless Founders series at Blackfinch.
Thanks, Reuben. It's really great to be here.
Good to see you here. And the first time we met, I think, was early 2019 when we invested in your company through our EIS portfolio service. But tell me, let's call it the origin story for Tended. How did it all begin?
Yeah, so it doesn't feel like 3 years, but Tended started just over 5 years ago now, and it all came off the back of an experience that I had in my previous life to becoming a technology founder, and that was working in the non-profit industry. So I was in the management team of a charity, and we were supporting underprivileged children with education. But at the same time, I then ended up being in Nepal during the 2015 earthquakes. This quickly led me to overseeing a team of 40 volunteers to support with a whole bunch of different life-saving and critical aid to ensure that people could survive through those terrible and challenging times. And during this time of being responsible for so many people's safety, I had this duty of care over my volunteers. And this was what led to me to realise that actually people should never be in a situation like we were, where we were faced with aftershocks, landslides. We were even ambushed at one time. And they should never be in a situation where they fear the fact that they could potentially not leave and return home back to their loved ones. And at that point, I realised just how important bringing new innovations and technology to the market to help prevent this ever happening was. And that's kind of the origin story of Tended. It was, we set out with a mission to prevent people ever dying or being critically injured at work. And that's kind of flowed through for the past 5 years, and now it's all we're focused on.
And we could see that passion come through when you came and pitched in the office downstairs way back then. And then we invested in the company, and those first sort of 12, 18 months you were developing that first product and targeted it towards large sort of enterprises with challenges around duty of care. But tell us about that part of the journey, the kind of the first sort of say year or 2 years in the Tended journey.
The core basis of our technology was using different sensors and machine learning to be able to really accurately detect if somebody had been involved in an accident and then send out for help. And that would help to reduce the amount of time that it would take for them to get the help that they needed. So following on from that investment at Blackfinch, we were at the point of just having that product where we're ready to go live. So that allowed us to fire up a number of critical trials with a number of enterprises. So we were working with the likes of Rolls-Royce and Nestle to help them with their duty of care for their workforce, ensuring that they have the tools and the technology in place that in the event of this really unfortunate incident potentially happening, that they would be able to respond and get the care to that individual that they need as quickly as possible.
So that was a really exciting time, wasn't it? You were making the prototypes, we saw them coming out of the factory and how they were starting to make an impact through those pilots. And I think that took us up to sort of the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, but then the world changed. COVID happens, huge challenges for everyone involved, but for Tended, it represented a really interesting opportunity to help.
Yeah, so obviously a super challenging time for business all round, but in particular for the businesses that we're working with, because they had very large workforces and we were trying to sell to their employees and for them to be using our devices. Unfortunately, when people aren't at work, that did mean that that meant that there wasn't really that much need for our technology. But then as well as that, we're in a position where our key stakeholders that we're selling to were like health and safety managers, and they obviously had much bigger challenges to focus on. So at this point, we kind of had a two-way street to go down, and one of them, which was the advice that we were given from a lot of people, which was to bunker down and weather the storm through furloughs. And then there was the other option, which was actually to look at the current challenge that our key sort of clients were facing and how we could potentially help them to bring those workforces back to work safer. And at this point, through the support of Blackfinch, we were able to focus in on that more challenging but more opportunistic route, and we ended up building our social distancing device. And this was a device that was able to position the distance between two individuals and alert them if they came within that kind of 2 meter social distancing limit, and then also provide some very accurate contact tracing behind the scenes. So with this, we ended up bringing a product to market in about 4 months, which is much shorter than the normal 12 to even 36-month timeline for a new hardware product. And then within a 12-month period, after almost 300 inquiries from all over the world, we were able to ship over 8,000 devices, reach almost £60,000 in monthly recurring revenue with some of the world's largest organisations like Rolls-Royce, Siemens, Unilever, and we were a key part in returning thousands of people back to work and ensuring that they were able to maintain safety during such a challenging environment.
And that really was an incredible achievement to take that to market so quickly, particularly in the context of supply chains around the world going crazy. I remember phone calls of where can we get the component from? Have you tried this place? There's a broker over there. But what you pulled off was amazing. So that contributed to enormous revenue growth at the time, I remember very well. But we all knew that obviously that would tail off, and your strategy around picking enterprises and companies that would give longer term value to you was at the forefront of your mind. So tell us about what happened next and the product that you kind of have today and how that came from the COVID solution.
So I talked earlier about the fact that as an organisation, our sole goal is to be looking at preventing fatalities, and then off the back of that obviously helps to drive revenue growth through the opportunities of reducing risk for organisations. And whilst our first product had a way to prevent that to a level by reducing the amount of time to respond to accidents, one of the things that we learned through social distancing was actually we want to do so much more. We want to prevent accidents, and we want to prevent things before they even come to that critical point where people need to respond to them. And during our early days of implementing social distancing, we started working very closely with Network Rail, and this led them on to discussing one of the biggest challenges that they currently face within the industry, that is unfortunately track workers that are working on these open lines being struck by oncoming trains. Unfortunately, this is quite a common thing. So in the past 2 years, Network Rail has seen or the rail industry more specifically, has seen over, I think, 8 fatalities. And this, from a large proportion of it, is from people losing situational awareness and straying into the way of an oncoming train. Network Rail have then had an ORR enforcement notice placed on them to state that they had to implement technologies to help prevent this. And this led us on to our work in terms of how can we build a very powerful technology solution that would enable us to do that. And that's how this product has come to market. So this has now been over 2 years in development. And this solution uses some of the most accurate GPS technology that you can get on the market. You would normally find it in autonomous vehicles or drones. And it's quite big and largy technology, but we've condensed it down into something this size. And this has now got us to a point where with this device, we can position people to centimetre accuracy, or 1.4 centimetres to be exact, and alert them if they stray into an unsafe zone. So the application that it's being used for in the rail industry is that we can map out where live tracks are and where safe tracks are that have been blocked off for work. And then if an individual is wearing one of our devices and then they stray into one of these tracks, they will then be given an alert to tell them that they need to take a step back.
And so this product as well, as you were explaining, contains just such a huge amount of technology compacted inside it that it's managed to open up all these different markets. But if you just step back for a moment then today, and how would you describe Tended's mission? What's the value proposition of Tended?
Our mission has always stayed the same, and it is to save lives and prevent serious fatalities within high-risk working environments such as the rail industry or the utilities industry. And we're doing that through creating truly cutting-edge technology that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world today.
And you talked through some of the journey together, but I know as well as you do, there have been many, many challenges along the way. So why don't you just tell us about maybe one or two particular challenges that you've faced and how you managed to circumvent those, which after all is probably the biggest role of any founder in any startup.
I think there's two that stand out for me, really. And you touched on one a little bit earlier around supply chain. So we're still facing those challenges at the moment that are coming through off the back of COVID. But during that time, it was particularly challenging. And it is around just how we can source components for these very high-tech pieces of equipment that we're building. But fortunately, we have been supported a lot through Blackfinch and your knowledge and experience within that sector. So that's been a great help, and we've managed to alleviate most of those challenges. And then I think the second is it's working with very traditional and slow-moving industries. And whilst this poses such a large opportunity, because when we start to convert and see technology like ours mandated in these very safety critical industries, the opportunities from a revenue and also a life-saving impact are huge, but it does take time. And this is one of the challenges that we face nearly every day, is just how we can move as fast as we want as a fast growth startup in slow moving industries.
It's limited, isn't it, by the people around you and the clients that you deal with, and that's just the fact of life, isn't it, when you have a startup like yours. But you've gone through several inflection points, both in terms of product development and growth and a few different factors. How important do you think successfully pivoting and doing it at speed has been to your company?
I think we've been through a few pivots in the business. I think we've been through three now, and I think that without those pivots, we probably wouldn't exist today. But what's really important when you're looking at pivoting is that that mission always stays the same. So whilst we've gone through different technology and product iterations, we're still looking at focusing on that sole goal of saving lives. And we've just got further towards achieving that mission because every iteration has improved the way that we're doing that and the likelihood of us preventing fatalities. And I think that a very good example that we can kind of look back on is iRobot, that have very recently been acquired by Amazon, I think it was. And they started out with a vision of bringing robots to the user's home, and then it ended up growing into the Roomba. And they went over, I think it was 8 or 9 different pivots before they got to where they were with the Roomba, that then ended up being this huge successful organization that we know. So pivots are absolutely critical to creating a successful startup. And I think for us, it's allowed us to get to a point where we're not just in an area where we have a product that is going to do incredibly well, but also we're going to make a huge difference to so many people's lives and families, ensuring that their loved ones can return home at the end of every day.
And you've certainly executed those pivots really, really well from my perspective. I can tell you, if you had to now reflect on kind of where you were at the beginning and where you are now, how would you summarize that kind of growth or the product journey overall?
I think it's really interesting. So when we started out, 2 years ago when we first met, we're in a position where we had a product that we knew would make a difference, and it had some level of product market fit. We had these trials and we had enterprise organizations sort of buying into the use of our technology. But we're now in a position where this product just last week has had a new standard brought out for Network Rail, which means that it's a key part of how they do their business on a day-to-day basis. And we're now in a position where we have what I would classify as really strong product market fit. We're getting every indicator to show that this is not just going to be a complementary product, but it's going to be a critical way into changing the way that an industry works. And this isn't just for the UK rail industry. We have a lot of other areas that we're exploring in terms of like the utilities industry and the highways as well. So we're in a position where we're now set for very, exciting and significant growth over the next 12 months.
It really is a game-changing product, isn't it? But if we step beyond that kind of 6-month horizon, 3 years' time, what do you think Tender's going to look like as a company then?
So I think you're right. It is going to be a really exciting 3 years ahead because we're now in a position where the technology is proven within the rail industry, and it's being endorsed by so many industry experts. We recently got called game-changing and a truly life-saving innovation for the rail industry. So this will see us to, hopefully, my ambition of all track workers in the UK being kitted out with one of our high precision positioning devices, as well as many around Europe and also North America and Australasia, which is obviously following on from those discussions that we're now already starting to have, but also starting to look into how we can help to prevent fatalities and save lives within other industries. So utilities is a very big target for us because as well as being able to position where people are on a 2D plane, we can actually look at them on a 3D plane on how high they are. And this means that we can start to give them warnings of overhead risks to that centimetre accuracy as well. And then also other industries like highways. And our goal for the next 3 years is to get these devices onto the arms and the waistbands of 20,000 people plus, and really help to improve safety and prevent fatalities.
Well, Leo, thank you so much for being a part of our Fearless Founders series. It's been a real pleasure, and I sit on the board of the company. I've been with you along the journey to be involved in Tender, to support Tender, and we certainly can plan to continue to do so in the years to come. So good luck with everything.
Thank you very much.